Hey, everybody. Are we live now, Sean? Okay. Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm missing my cues, apparently. I'm Carey Conley, for those of you who don't know me. I am a speaker and a host of a podcast called Moving Through and Beyond. I launched this podcast last year, officially on 11/11. And I want to come on here and just tell you how very excited I am to celebrate that we are a year in. Have had over 70 guests now, I believe, on the show. A few of them I'm going to introduce you to today. And so I want to, first of all, thank all of you. If you've been watching this podcast, if you've been listening, subscribing, sharing it out, it means the world to us. And as far as we know, to date right now, we think we've reached over 48,000 viewers on the podcast, which is amazing in the podcast world. So, and it's because I have an amazing team on the back end, you guys. That are managing me, bring you this podcast and do all that fabulous editing. So I want to thank them as well because they have done an amazing, amazing job. It's called Personalized Solutions. If you're looking for a podcast team, you want to check them out. So the reason I launched this podcast is because I know that there are so many people right now that are moving through some pretty heavy stuff, major adversity going on. And each one of the guests that I bring on have been through some sort of adversity or tragedy in their life as well. And instead of crumbling from what they've been through, they have embraced it. They have worked through it and have been willing to come on and share their stories and also share what helped them get through whatever that adversity was so that they could give you some tips and some encouragement as well. Personally, I have been through 2 suicides in my family. So I have been very public about that and wanted to I just really felt like when I was sharing my story, there were so many people that were starting to reach out to me afterward, asking for help, asking most specifically, they wanted to know, what helped me get through it, what's helping me now, why I'm being so public with this. And so and I'm sure every one of the guests that I have on here, because they've been so public with their story as well, I get a lot of those messages too. And they've been so gracious about when I called and said, hey, I'm launching this podcast. Would you be willing to come on and share your story and what helped you get through it? 3,000%, everyone. Absolutely. Yes. Tell me when, tell me where. So I'm just really, really grateful for that. And I'm going to introduce my first round of panelists here in a second. But what we decided to do with this month of celebrating the podcast is launch what we're calling a virtual summit of healing and hope. And so every Wednesday at this time, 10 a.m. Pacific time, I'm going to bring back some of the guests that I've had on the show on panels in different topics. And so today's topic is all around healing through trauma and loss. And I'm just thrilled to have these women on here with me. And I also want to tell you guys that at the very end, I'm going to be giving everybody a gift for me. And I'm also going to be making a big announcement, something that I've been working on for quite a while. So that I hope you will hang in here with me and help me launch that. So thank you for helping me celebrate this. I want to thank my guests that are here today. And just I'm so grateful if you can't tell. Super emotional. So I would love for my guests to introduce themselves to you all. And so Karen, I'm going to start with you, my friend. This is Karen Nowicki, friend of mine I've known in Phoenix for probably 5-6 years now. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored and excited to get to know everybody else that you've invited for this first panel conversation to celebrate the success of your podcast and have a conversation around hope and healing. I'm Karen Nowicki, and I own and operate Phoenix Business Radio X, which is a podcast production studio all around B2B. And then the real thing I do, I've got a team that does that for me. What I really do and why I even open up Phoenix Business Radio X is I work as a trauma guide and an integrative coach. I help executive leaders and business owners really get out of their own way and heal those aspects of themselves that hold them back. And oftentimes people are not even aware, and I'm sure the rest of our panelists can agree with this. Sometimes we're not even aware what stories we're telling ourselves or what trauma we have that's keeping us blocked. And so I help people do that through a variety of modalities, and just really excited to be here. I don't know if you want me to speak a little bit to my own personal trauma experience, but I'm happy to do that now or can save it.
Yeah, I'll come back to you, Karen. Thank you so much. Karen had me on her radio show years ago, which is how we originally met. And now I actually work with her as a client healing through some of my trauma as well. So she's a very dear friend. So thank you, Karen. Elizabeth, I would love you all to meet Elizabeth Boisson. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. I know you say it much more beautifully than I do because you're French, but I would love for you guys to meet this fabulous woman and hear what she's doing in the world.
Well, thank you. I'm the president and co-founder of Helping Parents Heal, and we are now about 26,000 members throughout the world. I have two children in spirit. My daughter passed when she was 2 days old in France, and her name's Chelsea. That was in 1991. And then my son Morgan passed at the base camp of Mount Everest in Tibet in 2009. And it was actually October 20th of 2009, so it was very recent this year. And we immediately, when Morgan transitioned, I had a shared death experience with him. So I knew that he was not gone, and I started Helping Parents Heal a week later.
This organization, you all, is tens of thousands of people across the world. It's amazing. We host a huge conference in Phoenix every other year, and I got to go last year. It's kind of an interesting story. We got connected through a mutual friend. I want to share this because it's kind of a God thing. We got connected through a mutual friend on Facebook Messenger 2 years ago, and I didn't see it until a year ago, July. Maybe I did see it and I didn't respond to it, whatever reason, but I caught it last July, a year ago, July. And I felt really compelled to reach out to her. So I reached out and said, I need to know you. This is what's happened with me. I lost my 25-year-old son. And she said, this is amazing. Next month, we're having a huge conference here in Phoenix. And I said, I would love to go. And she said, well, it's full. So you're going to have to wait for the next one. The next day, I get a phone call from her partner saying, hey, we've got a ticket for you. I said, great. And then they said, but we do not have any room in the hotel. We've got 900 people on a waiting list. I said, no problem. I've got plenty of places to stay in Arizona. Next day, I get a phone call. Hey, we've got a room for you. Like, of course you do. So it was amazing. It was just a surreal experience, you guys, being in a hotel with 900 parents and our kids all in spirit there. It was amazing. Can't wait for the next one. So thank you for being here, Elizabeth.
Oh, thank you. I'm really excited. Thanks.
Yeah. Bella Vasta, my dear friend, you are just, I mean, truly one of my biggest supporters of everything I do. I can't thank you enough for being here. And I'd love for you to share with everybody what you're doing in the world, the big stuff.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Bella Vasta in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I have been a serial entrepreneur. I started doing things that most of the world doesn't realize that could turn into $1 million businesses, and that's pet sitting and dog walking. And so over the past 20 years, I've been coaching people, but I've also been doing a lot of speaking on leadership and working through and using my trauma as leverage to kind of crack open people's hearts and inspire hope and turn their I can'ts into I cans and just really try to be the biggest light I possibly can in the own world. And as we all know, that as we do that, that also means that the universe and things gives us stuff to constantly be growing from as well. And I am not a quiet person, so I'm sure we'll get into the nitty gritty of it in a little bit. But I'm a business coach, but a little bit more than that.
I'd say a lot more than that, Bella. I think, that was a foundation for all of us, and it kind of just became a mission that we're all on. So I appreciate you, my friend. Miss Autumn Shields, I've known Autumn for, 20 years now, and we have a lot of connections in a lot of different ways, but thank you, Autumn, for being here. I appreciate you.
Yes. Congratulations on this year. It's not just a podcast. I know it's just one branch of your mission and obviously reaching more and more people in different ways. So congratulations on that. My name is Autumn Shields. I have known Carey over 20 years. I actually live half the year outside of Boston on Cape Cod, and then half the year I'm in Belize in Central America. So I just got here last week, and we met through a social selling company that we've both been involved with. But before that, I was a victim advocate. So I was serving in Denver, serving different metropolitan police departments, and primarily serving victims of crime. And through that, just learning trauma counseling and resources for victims of crime, things like Columbine, their horror shooting. Just recently got back from Maui, helping the Maui fire victims, and I've seen a lot. I've seen how people deal with trauma and hopefully a light in their world for when they're dealing with that. And then about 10 years ago, I wrote my first book called Living Your Life Alive, because at the time I realized I wasn't living my life alive. And that started coaching, and now my helping people pivot. So whether that is in business or outside of business or from trauma, but we pivot. A lot of times we have to pivot because of circumstances that are outside of us or we can't control, and other times we want to pivot, right? And so that's really where I enjoy serving people now.
Mm. Yeah, I'm sure you all are familiar with the Columbine shooting and when that happened years ago in Colorado. Autumn was a big part of helping those victims, and unfortunately, a lot of other things that have happened there too. So she really weaves in, like all of you, into her business. It's much more of a mission of what she's doing. So you can collectively see why I brought you all on together. Amazing group of women. I could stay here all day and talk to you guys, but I would love to kind of revisit, if you guys would, a little bit about what we talked about individually when I had you as guests on the podcast. Share a little bit about your story, a little bit about what we talked about. And you know what? I'm going to start with you, Bella. Go ahead and share your story if you don't mind, and kind of, you and I have a little discussion here about what's been going on in your life.
Sure. So I had that little girl dream that everybody has, and that's to get married and have a family and have a baby. And I had this dream that I would run my companies while my child was napping. And got married, went on my honeymoon, came home, found out I was pregnant, stood in my living room and said, God, why do I have to wait 9 months? And so he said, okay, we'll give you your baby in 6 months, or rather 28 weeks, 5 days, measuring a 22-weeker, which they say that 24 weeks is viable. I basically had one of the world's smallest micro preemie babies. She was born at only 12 ounces, 10 inches, and her leg fit through my ring. That's how tiny she was. Her eyes were still fused shut, the whole nine. At the time, I was running my pet sitting company with 10 employees and an amazing manager. And I was also business coaching. I had just kind of started that career. And so I would spend 8 to 10 hours a day at NICU, wondering if my child was going to survive countless amounts um, of coding and reviving and resuscitating and just living in fear, living literally minute by minute. And before that, was not like that. I was always 10 steps ahead. Um, we came out of that, had 40 hours of nursing during the day, 40 hours of nursing at night. We had a pretty tough time. I was obviously PTSD, postpartum. I mean, you name it, I had it. And but I really wanted to crawl out of that hole, and I did everything it took to do it, even when I didn't feel like it. And unfortunately, my marriage did not survive through it. So that was a whole nother shift of everything and questioning who you are. And I know there's a lot of listeners out there that have gone through divorce or significant breakups. I always like to tell people that it doesn't matter if you stubbed your toe or you had a 12-ounce baby. Trauma is trauma. Things happen to us. And the way that every single person listening to this right now walks around with it matters, and the healing from it, and the all the things that you can do. So I know this isn't a really long podcast episode. So the two things that I would love for someone to just remember, or that we could talk about, is do not isolate. The devil wants you to isolate. The worst place you can ever be is alone in your thoughts. Create that board of CEOs, join those organizations, get on these podcasts like this, like reach out. And the second thing is create your board of CEOs. So I came a point in my life where I was pretty codependent, and I was always looking for someone else to fill me up. And I had to realize that I had all that power within me, and I could cultivate it around me, and I didn't need to wait
Mm.
for a romantic relationship for that. That I could really create a family and not isolate. I'm a very big extrovert.
Mm.
And so I think community and not isolating are two of the biggest things that a person can do no matter what you struggle with. If you're trying to build a business, if you're trying to heal, if you're trying to cross the street, those two things I think are two of the most valuable things that anyone can do in their life. And you just have to make a conscious effort to go after those.
Yeah.
That's my shortest little thing right there.
Oh, I love the word family. Am I the only person who's not heard that before?
Oh,
I am totally adopting that.
yeah, family,
Uh,
friends that become family.
Totally
Yes.
adopting that. I want to say something about Bella, you guys. So about, I don't know, less than a year after my son
Do you want me to tell it?
passed. Yes, please.
Okay. See, we got you, girl. So,
Yeah.
less than a year after Cole passed away, her son, we were at a networking meeting, and coming out of my own trauma where everybody comes up to you and they're like, "Oh, how are you doing?" And then you're like real with them, and now you're taking care of their emotions, and it's very awkward because you're not even strong enough to do it, which I think is one of the reasons why people just isolate. They're like, "Leave me alone."
Yeah.
And so I just walked up to her and I said, "Hey, Carey, it's really good to see you out again." It was her first event. I said, "I missed you. I love you. I know what happened. If you want to talk about it, cool, but I'm not going to bring it up because I don't want you to have to bear that weight. Like, I'll be your sidekick today and divert conversations when it gets like that, and let's just get you back out there."
Yeah.
And it was a special moment.
Yeah. It was very refreshing. And I learned from that, Bella,
Mm-hmm.
how to respond now to other people as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because we went from being, okay, so my husband passed in 2014 of suicide, and then my son in 2017. And so overnight, we became this beautiful family of four to, oh my gosh. So going to the grocery store, everywhere I went, the very first thing I would get would be, just the whole, you could see people just reacting.
Yes.
And it would just be this whole thing, like Bella just said, that I had to now get into their emotion. Right. So it was so refreshing when Bella was just standing next to me, and she wasn't hugging me. She wasn't looking at me weird. She just very kindly just said, "I want you to know that I'm not responding to what's happened to you, not because I don't care, but because I know right now you're trying to hold it together."
Mm-hmm.
Loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Bella.
Yeah. Always.
Awesome. Yeah. So Autumn, I'm going to turn to you next because I know you've been through a lot of this with what you've done. And so I thank you again for coming on and sharing a little bit more about your story and some things that you shared on the podcast that can help some people. Your mic's still off.
I can't get it back on.
There you go. There you go.
Okay.
You're on.
Thank you. Sorry about that. So when you asked me to be on the podcast, you asked me to speak about maybe how to help others that are going through trauma, maybe cope, or just some tidbits that I've seen both whether it's on scene or right at the moment, all the way through. And I think that the topic you guys just brought up of, giving people that space so it's not about your emotions is a big one. But when I see people, you see, just like you said, from stubbing a toe to losing a child and everything in between, is that people deal with it in so many different ways, and all of it is an okay way. There's definitely healthier ways to deal with things and unhealthy ways to deal with things. But one thing I noticed right away, and I bet you're going to hear this word all day because I've heard it already, and I'm going to be the third person to say this, is connection or community. And I remember when I was on scene at Columbine, I was one of the first people into the gym with the parents. And then through the next few days as it unfolded, same thing with the Aurora shooting with the theater, watching the next few days unfold, just leaving Maui and watching, I got there weeks after it happened, and watching what happens after, is that the sense of community is so strong, so much stronger than before. You see people connect in a way that's people normally don't connect. I remember after Columbine being a few different days afterwards at this big event and watching people interact with each other. And it was such a deeper connection. And I was actually taken back by that, because I was like, oh my gosh, we're in trauma. Everyone's in trauma, but there is this sense of connection. And again, it's easy to isolate, but that sense of connection about being with people, if you can, those are the times. And I had, without breaking confidentiality, I had a parent through the Aurora theater shooting, one of her children did. And a year later, we were at the year memorial, and I said, what is the biggest thing you've gotten out of this year? And she said, I've never felt the loss of love like I felt, but I've never gained. I didn't know love could run this deep. And it's like that deep loss and then deep gain with those same experiences. You can only experience that with connection. And so it might just be a way of reaching out, without, dealing with your own trauma, asking people, what can I do? And saying, you can be honest with me. You can say, I don't want to talk, or I just want to go have fun, or
Right.
be able to be upfront and be open with somebody that's asking you, or also set boundaries to say, hey, thank you so much. I'd love to talk to you about this. I just can't do it today. I'd love to update. I just can't do it today. And it's okay to have those boundaries, and it's okay to isolate once in a while. But, and the other thing, the second thing is, I would say there are so many tools out there and so many groups and so many people that have gone before what you might be experiencing or have experienced, and to really attach, if it feels good, to at least put your toe in the water and say, okay, is this a Facebook group? Is this a good group for me to be part of? Is this a good therapist? Just because it worked for everyone else doesn't mean it will work for you. But also, there are tools that seem so simple, so they're easy to do, but they're easy not to do. Like right before we got on this call, breath work all together and set our intention. Those little tools are so easy to do, but they're so easy not to do. But they really can help people get through trauma. But I really see the people that don't crumble, as we said, and that do things like move on and help other people live their life alive again, is that they they work on that muscle of resilience. And sometimes none of us are born with it, right? We have to, it's a muscle we build all the time. And it just takes time to learn to build that muscle. And sometimes we have to lean on other people to help build those muscles for us, because we sometimes just don't feel like we can, or we don't have tools and we don't have the understanding of what resilience means and how to build that. So by just leaning on other people that have gone through it really, really helps, so you don't ever feel alone, because nobody's ever been through what you've been through. But just somebody that can have that understanding helps a lot.
Yeah. I love how you are saying it. I'm sure I saw everybody nodding their heads about talking about building that muscle. I've been thinking about that a lot this past month, because I've made 2 moves happen in the past 3 weeks, and it's been a lot. And every day I would get up and doubt, what am I doing? How did I get here? And then you start replaying, what's gone on in your life and how you got to this point. And every day I kept thinking, all right, I'm building a new muscle. I'm just building a new muscle for the next level of where I'm going. And I lean on a lot of people for that, right? Because when I'm going down, I've got somebody else going, hey, not on my watch, we're doing this. And you are exactly where you need to be right now. So thank you for that, Autumn. And talking about community,
That's
so
a
important.
strength. Like, reaching out to other people is not a weakness. Leaning on other people is not a weakness. It's a strength to be able to do that.
So true. So true. And so, Elizabeth, I know that this is going to so ring true with you, with your community, because as I mentioned when I introduced you, I go to a lot of conferences like we all do, you guys. And usually it's kind of awkward because you got to get to know each other and network a little bit. I'm going to tell you, when you walk into a hotel of 900 people who have all lost a child one way or another, there were no words that were needed. It was amazing. So I would love for you to talk more about that, Elizabeth.
I would love to. And I think that this panel is such a beautiful group of compassionate women. And I just want to point out that I think that tragedy and trauma always on as we move through it allow us to become much more compassionate and much more caring. And I feel very grateful that we have a lot of volunteers with Helping Parents Heal who want to be able to give back. So as soon as they've gone down the healing path and they feel that they have been able to heal, they start an affiliate or they become one of our caring listeners. So we have 175 affiliate leaders throughout the world, but we also have caring listeners who are just simply parents who are helping other parents. And we now have 10 languages spoken with the caring listeners. So we're able to have a hearing listener in Arabic, Mandarin Chinese, traditional Chinese, as well as lots of European languages as well, even Norwegian. And, I think that this is something that's really important, because the most important thing, I think, when you have gone through something like this, is to find community, as you all have been saying over and over again. And for me, when I was having this shared death experience with Morgan, and when I knew he was still here, and I knew that other parents were experiencing the same kind of signs and validations that I was experiencing, that I needed to be able to reach out to them and find out about experiences. And Carey writes about them in her book. They're beautiful. I think that that term for family is just beautiful as well, because everyone in Helping Parents Heal is part of our big family. And I do believe that a lot of times these friends that we meet along the way are even more important than our own family or the friends that we already had. And I think that we do shed a lot of the friends that we had before, because they just don't get it. And it's hard to be around them. It's hard to be happy around them, because they don't understand how we could be happy. I think one of the things you hear the most is, I would I would never be able to survive if I had a child pass. I would never be able to survive if I had two, or if my husband passed. But we are surviving, and hearing that from someone is not helpful or healing. That doesn't help anything. So being able to be with a group, a community of people who truly understand and who have been through this, I think, is one of the most healing things that we can do.
I have to tell you, so many people ask me what has helped me the most. And it's not been counseling. It's been messages and being around other people that remind me, like Elizabeth does, how much they are with me all the time. That is what heals me the most. So I love your community, Elizabeth, and you just always make me feel so at peace when I'm with you, because you remind me of that all the time. Thank you.
Thank
Such a blessing. And Karen, I would love for you to talk a little bit more about your story and why I had you on, and kind of what helped you get through that as well.
Sure. So 2019, right before COVID descended upon us, which I think was about March when everything started shutting down. On October 28th, which has only been, I think that was Monday of this week or Sunday, 4 years ago, my then husband attempted suicide by gunshot and survived. Total surprise to me. He is and was the love of my life. We had been married for 15 years. We share a son together who is now 16. I have two older kids, 29 and 27, who he dearly loved, and they dearly loved him. I just woke up one morning, got a text, and I was on this weird group text with our baseball families, husbands and wives, and the text didn't come to me alone. And he just was saying goodbye and take care of Ivan and Karen. I didn't see the text. I got a call a few minutes later as I was getting ready for work. And one of the moms on that text said, hey, where are you? I said, I'm at home. She said, you need to get to the shop right away. And in that moment, I just knew Mike had not been feeling well physically. I thought that's all it was. There was addiction involved. He kept it very, very well hidden. And having to get to the shop, which was only a half mile away, and trying to bust down the door with a couple of people there to get into his lobby to find him having shot himself was, as you can imagine, and again, I love that Bella said it, right? Trauma doesn't know the difference between, I'm exaggerating, but trauma doesn't know the difference between stubbing a toe and witnessing what or experiencing what some of us are discussing that we've witnessed, right? It's how it lands in our body that really impacts us. So what I'm talking about is, and I'm borrowing these terms, I'm talking about capital T trauma. And then there's also lowercase t trauma, right? So, but our body doesn't know the difference. So my whole world collapsed as similarly with what many of you are sharing. And I'm sure a lot of our viewers and listeners have experienced as well, or they know somebody who's experienced this. And my whole world went into a tailspin. I am a business owner. I mentioned that at the beginning. I have 2 businesses. Mike owned a business as well. We were both about 3 years into our business and our own businesses. So we were extraordinarily busy. And I just went into shock. And I woke up, I think it was like the 3rd or 4th night, kind of in the middle of the evening, early morning. And as I woke up, I heard, and to me, it's God's voice, simply said, "You are going to share this as it's happening." And I was angry. I thought, the hell I am. This is you can ask me to do this. And the next thing I heard was, "I've prepared you your whole life for this." And again, I thought, well, that's shitty. How is that even possible? That my life, which I have felt so blessed, I've had challenges, but I have always been well taken care of, and I've had great faith, and I've always shared openly. How have you prepared me for me to lose the love of my life in such a traumatic way? And I listened, and friends started a GoFundMe campaign because I didn't realize that financially we had been tanked. As this was all unfolding within a week, came to find out that our savings was gone. Our house was about to be foreclosed on, and just things that were completely out of my reach. And I began to write. And I just wrote and shared on the Caring Bridge page. I had a presence on Facebook already because it's part of my business. And again, just how I do life, because I'm very open. And within a short period of time, I knew I was going to be tenderly held. And Carey, you mentioned that you and I are, doing work together with you as a client of mine around healing. While some of the other gals were chatting, I brought up on Messenger your message to me 12 days after this happened. I just remember we were connected right away because of this. I thought of you a handful of times in those early days. And, you're in chaos. People are reaching out. You don't know what to say, know what to do. I love that some of you have these beautiful suggestions around how to hold people in that space. But Carey, you said to me just simply, "Hey there, how are you doing?" And I knew, as somebody who's been through something similar, I could just be. And I came back and said, "I'm 98% living in blind faith, mercy, and grace, and 2% excruciatingly shattered beyond repair. Thank you for checking in on me." And Carey says, "That is exactly where it is. The faith and knowing that this is in God's control and not yours is the only way." And I just responded by saying, "Amen." And I think that, as everybody shares a little bit of a nugget around what got them through, for me, when God asked me to share this and said, "I prepared your whole life for this," people say, "Oh, you're so strong. You've done it so well." And I think, oh my God, I've been a mess. Like, I don't, that's great that you think I'm strong, but resilient. I think Elizabeth used that word earlier. Resilient maybe, but strong. No, I'm the opposite of strong. I am just vulnerable. I'm being in the moment, and I'm grateful. This is really key, I think, for our viewers who might be going through something or want to anticipate or need to anticipate that someday life might unfold on them a little bit. We never hope that, but life happens, right? COVID, look at that example. 3 months after Mike landed in the hospital, all of us were about to flatline. And I have to tell you, jokingly, I said to myself when I realized we were shutting down, I thought, well, thank God the pressure's off of Ivan and I, that everybody's going through this experience. Misery loves company. And again, I say that jokingly, I wouldn't wish that on anybody, but there was a part of me that wanted people to feel the depth of despair and anguish that I was experiencing, because when it's our own stuff, right? You've all said it, but I just thought if anybody could understand what I'm going through, this COVID thing might be the way that we level the playing field. And I think that's part of what plays into why, Carey, you've had this beautiful mission.
Yeah.
So so just to finish up, I would say that I have been a mind, body, spirit coach myself for years. I got into the work years before for another life crisis that I had to navigate through. And I would just say that along with communication and community and not isolating and all the beautiful things that each of you have shared, take care of your container. we've got one body on this turn on earth, one. And if we are not listening to how it intuitively tells us what we need, we're going to have a difficult time.
So much you can unpack with all this, Karen. And I just think, when I heard what had happened, I probably took this from Bella. I thought, and from my own experience, instead of sending you and you just said, and we've all experienced this, when things like this happen, it becomes chaos. Like the minute I waited 2 days after my husband died to air it on Facebook because I knew what was going to happen. And we built like a moat around my house. Like drawbridge was up, moat was around. The only people who were allowed in was me and my kids because we just became bombarded. And it just adds to the trauma. And so you have to learn. I think one of the things we all learn from it is how to put serious boundaries up. And unfortunately, we lose, and I think you said this, Elizabeth, that you lose the friends that had been with you in the journey thus far, and even family members when you go through trauma, because they don't know what to do. Right. So thank you for sharing all of that. And I did watch you unfold on Facebook and so openly share what you've been through. And you've just been such an inspiration to so many people. So I want to touch on this. I'm going to kind of change up the run a show we were going to do here and talk a little bit about vision and purpose, because I know this is what triggered me to go this way. Karen, you said, God said, I've been preparing you your whole life for this. I felt the same way. Yep. As a vision coach, for those of you who don't know, I specialize in helping people get what I call their someday plan out of their head into a very concrete vision for their life so that they can actually execute their authentic dream. And one of the reasons I tell people that vision is victory is because it becomes the anchor in all the storms in life. That's what's got me through, is knowing that this has been my purpose all along. And I know probably you guys all feel that way too. So I would love for you to just take a minute, each of you guys, and just talk about, why you're choosing the purpose that you're on and how important your vision has been. So Autumn, I'm going to start with you.
So you were the queen of vision. I mean, since I've known Carey, that is like her middle name. Might be her first name, I think. But yes. Vision is so important. When I met you in my mid-20s and you think about, what is your vision for your life? And you think, well, I have a plan, right? I have a husband, because some kids, you build a business, whatever your vision is for your life. And then all of a sudden, whatever happens, tragedy happens, things happen, and so many unexpected things happen. And I think the word you said was so important, is the word anchoring. So wherever I'm at right now today, wherever you are as a listener at right now, if you know that you're anchored and that it is going to be okay, and that it is going to get better, and that there is a purpose, not a reason, but maybe a purpose for you in this, for other people, that anchor will hold you. Now, everything in between that can get all broken down into, maybe it's a day, maybe it's a week, maybe it's years until, we get here. And I think it's so important to have vision, because the other word that comes to me is hope. And I feel like people lose that sense of hope. Well, you can say, okay, we'll just have hope. But what does hope even mean? To me, is a word that I can think, okay, if I do have a vision for my life, I might not be able to see it clearly, but I can borrow Carey's vision, or I can borrow vision for a little bit. And, their life is probably not what I'm going to do with mine, but they're going to inspire me to think, what is my vision for my life, and know that it is okay for you to have vision and beyond trauma, beyond what life hands us, right? It's okay to rebuild. It's okay to pivot. It's okay. I think sometimes we're not given permission to pivot or to be okay past whatever. We get a title, right? We get stuck in these titles or situations. And you know what? The permission is to give yourself, and we're giving you permission to say, you know what? It is okay for you to have a vision for your life. And even if it's little, even if it doesn't feel real, to me, a lot of times I've built vision in my own life. I have not. Carey pushed me. I always use Carey as an example, actually, in my business when I'm coaching other people, is that, you don't have to totally believe it, like in here, but just have the vision. Like, where are you going to be in 5 years from now? And you're like, what? I can't even think about what I'm going to eat my next meal, right? I can't, it's complete chaos. Or I lost my vision because I've been dealing with this, is that vision, even if you don't believe it, just writing it down is like the first step. And what happens is, I believe it's divine. I believe always following the nudges, but just doing that, it starts to unfold for you and the resources start to show up and that vision will become more and more clear. And I think and staying connected and learning about other people's vision, like Elizabeth, what you've created is phenomenal. That's not my vision for my life, but it's amazing, inspires me. And then I think, okay, well, you know what? Like maybe a thought pops in my head and I think, oh my gosh, maybe it's this. But I always say there's nudges that are in us that follows those nudges, and just say, keep doing this and keep going. And this is possible. And I know Carey's, launching something big at the end of this, but it's because of those nudges. Like you can try to ignore them, but they're there. And if we follow those nudges, to me, that's where that vision is built. And really good things can happen. And it's okay if really good things happen.
Yeah. You said so many good things, Autumn, but the thing that really has been resonating with me a lot lately is, especially with all the change in my physical world of selling a house and moving again and all the things, is that sometimes you can feel so unsettled in your soul because it feels like chaos. We've all said this word one way or another. But what keeps me going is I know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing every day. And I think a lot of times people stop themselves because they feel like that feeling is telling them that something is wrong. Right. And what I've learned is that if I'm feeling that, as anxious as I was this morning to do this live broadcast, I have learned to know that it doesn't matter about what I'm feeling. And the reason I'm feeling that is because I'm going in the right direction. Right. And you guys are all just such great reminders for me. So thank you, Autumn. And Elizabeth, when you started helping parents heal, was your vision as big as it has become? Because it's become massive.
Well, I was really hoping that people would be able to understand that their kids are still here, that
Yeah.
that we can connect with them. And nothing like this existed. And I had been to a lot of other support groups and wasn't able to find anywhere that I could talk about the signs that I was getting from Morgan and from Chelsea and be able to feel validated. So I could talk to people in the parking lot because they'd come up to me after and they'd say, "Oh, you were starting to talk about a sign. I'm getting the same sign. Could you tell me what's happening?" And I loved doing that. But I think that one thing that really sets us apart from other support groups is that we don't like to say the word bereaved. We don't like to say that we lost our child because they're not lost. They're more, they know where they are better than we do. We don't say that they died because they haven't died, only their physical body has transitioned. But I think that one thing that's really exciting about our group in the very beginning, Suzanne Giesman, who works closely with us, and she is an evidential medium, but also a Navy commander. She worked with Presidents Bush and let's see, some other presidents. She's very uh, she is not at all of this afterlife world. This is not something that she came to easily, but she started having her stepdaughter come to her after she transitioned when she was in Croatia on a sailboat. Anyway, we talked to Suzanne because we really don't like that term bereaved, as I said, and wanted to find something that was more hopeful and healing. And we now call ourselves, because she meditated on this and figured out a different term that we love, Shining Light Parents. And Shining Light Parents refers to the fact that the light of our kids shines through us. And it's something that inspires me every single day. I can feel, in fact, I feel ringing in my ears right now, but I can feel the kids around me all the time. And now, obviously, with 26,000 members in the group, I feel like when I do transition, there will be 26,000 kids that I get to hug when I get over there. And
That is, and see, and I don't want to interrupt you, Elizabeth, but that vision right there that you have is what helps people like me, right?
well,
Reminders of that. And so I love that you're able to share that not just with, a handful of people, but thousands of people. It's amazing.
well, and one thing that's really exciting is that our affiliate leaders and our caring listeners are definitely far along enough on their paths to explain all of this to parents
Right.
and tell them that it's going to get better. And I think that one thing that was very hard for me again in those other support meetings is that I would go to a meeting and there would be people sitting in a circle who had been in that same group for 15 years. And all that they wanted to talk about was the moment that their child passed,
Mm,
not about the way that their child lived or about the signs that they're getting with their child right now, but just about that one moment, which the kids don't want us to talk about. They don't want us to focus on that. That's just a
mm,
transition, an exit point. So anyway, I think that for me, and I think that for most people in helping parents heal who have been with the group long enough, we realize that we receive a lot of collateral beauty from this type of experience, and we're able to move forward with lots of gifts from our kids that we would never have received or understood that we were receiving,
right.
and a sense of intuition that's so much stronger.
Yeah.
Obviously, everybody's talking about intuition. I think that
Yes.
intuition is something that's key to moving forward and living a happy life.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm.
I'm honored to be a part of your vision in that organization. And she actually brings on guest speakers every week. And my daughter and I got to speak for the group about a year ago. It was
No,
awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was
What about your vision now, Miss Karen? What do you see coming for you, and how important it is for you to keep moving on?
So it's curious that you're asking me that right now. Before we went live, we were in the green room. I mentioned that this week has been a little bit hectic and crazy. I'm faced with some challenges with my business, and I have to make a decision. Am I keeping my business open? Am I,
Mm,
gonna go get a job? And the thing that keeps tethering me back to my mission and purpose is that vision and trusting my intuition. So while I still have decisions to make, I know that whatever direction I go, I'm committed to making sure that I continue to help support people through their integrating their shadows and integrating their trauma so that they can stand in the present of today and be fully aligned with their chronological age as well as their emotional age. That's the work that I do. So, however that looks going forward, I'm just listening and paying attention, and we'll continue to be a beacon and a lighthouse for folks in that place.
yeah, and I trust that it's going to all come together for you collectively, ladies. Have you noticed this year that there are a lot of people like us that this is happening?
There's so much
Like,
shifting happening with major
yes,
life. Like, I feel like so many of us helped get people through or led the way through COVID, right? And we're like delayed a
yeah,
couple of years and now we're kind of realigning. And there's a lot of that happening. And again, back to the isolation, I think it's kind of scary when we're such like, woo, and you can feel something shifting. Carrie and I had this conversation like, you feel something shifting, and every yin has a yang, every positive has a, dark has a light, right? And it's like, we make ourselves available to be used, to help change, to help grow, but then we almost realize that that also means for ourselves too. And as that happens, we have to leave some things behind to get to that next level or enter
yeah,
that next blessing. And that is, I'm getting goosebumps saying it. It's just, it's freaky and it's scary. And it's,
yes,
but if you want to be used, you can't stay in the same spot. Like, Elizabeth was just talking about that one period of time, not before and after. And I see so much movement. I have my board of CEOs I was telling you about, like my best girlfriends. There's many of them going through that as well. And so Karen, you saying that and going back to community, just showing up. I didn't know you ladies an hour ago. And like, wow, I am so in love with all of you now. And it's just because we all just showed up as our authentic self. And
yeah,
this is what the power of good people can do. I mean, and when you have that, you can go through the next stages. You can keep your mission of inspiring hope or connection or change or whatever it is, because you're also, like then Karen said, like filling your own cup, right? You're keeping yourself full. And this is just so fruitful. Carrie, thank you for these moments today.
no,
Thank you for the
no.
courage to do it.
Well, I'm being, held up by all of you. So yeah, I think this has just been amazing. And there's so many great nuggets we got out of today, and I wrote some of the words down, but I want you guys to just throw some more words out, specifically words of encouragement, and just a word or maybe two, as we kind of wrap this up. Speaking most especially to the next generations coming, because they're coming up through a world right now that is just nuts. So I have a huge heart for young adults, and I'm going to announce this in a minute. As you know, and when I say young adults, I'm talking about the ones who are like early 20s to early 30s. I kind of feel like there's a gap of this group that don't get enough help. And they're coming into a world right now that is just like, they don't know which way is up. And so, of course, I'm going to continue doing my vision work with them and teaching them how to have a vision for their life and all the other things. But I heard the words community over and over and over again. Do not isolate. Do not isolate. This is a huge problem we have in this age group, you guys. I don't know if you know this, but statistically, they are the loneliest generation on the planet. It's just scary, and there's a lot of reasons why they have that isolation, as we all know. Finding your family. I love this. This is my new word that I'm going to start saying over and over, because the people that are around you that you thought were going to be there for you might not be, and it's okay. Not everybody's meant to be in your front row all the time, and I talked a lot about changing your front row quite a bit, and just trusting that you are going in the right direction. I think a lot of times, you guys, I did a workshop for some kids in a high school earlier this year. And I asked them all to write their vision down on paper. And of course, they've never been asked to do that before. And after they started writing some of it down, I said, how do you feel about that? And they told me two things. But one of the things that really resonated with me that I did not forget and I was not expecting is they said, but what if we go in that direction and it doesn't work? And then we're stuck there. And I thought, oh my gosh. I said, guys, I'm 61 years old and I'm still changing my path. I said, you have to start somewhere. They're so afraid of making any step in any direction for fear of, they're not doing the right thing, failing, all this stuff. So I think the community and really trusting your authentic path. So just randomly shout out some words, you guys, that you would like to share with the young adults and the kids, just to help them get through.
I just like to say, how many times did Michael Jordan fail before he became such an incredible athlete? He didn't make his high school team, and he's from Wilmington, which is close to where we were. He was Morgan's idol. I think that these kids these days have got to realize that putting themselves out there is the way that they can achieve happiness and be doing relevant things in the world.
Right. Thank you.
I'd say grit, right? Be gritty. Grit to me is not, kind of tagging along with what Elizabeth is saying, is not avoiding the shitstorm, not avoiding the hard conversations. Again, listening intuitively to who and what we're called to be and having those conversations. And that takes grit and tenacity. And I mean, even just for our viewers and listeners, I hope Carey doesn't mind this saying, but the nervousness, Carey, that you held as we were coming into this opportunity to share, you did it so gracefully and so beautifully, and you were very candid about it. And like Bella said, we're here for you.
Right.
And we couldn't have done this if this wasn't you being led from a higher place, right? And that's grit. Like, get quiet. Let me know what I'm being called and asked to do, and then give me the gifts and the people to make it happen, and then just lean in.
Right. Have the faith.
Yeah.
A lot about faith.
Yeah.
Because it's not, as you said, Autumn, it's not about being strong. Yeah. So people tell me all the time, and I'm sure they've told you, all of you, how strong you are. If they had any idea, this is not my strength that's happening.
No.
I'm leaning on firepower. So
No.
I had my best friend sit down at lunch telling me that I was a hot mess. I broke up with her over it. I cannot believe she called me a hot mess. And she's like, of course you're a hot mess. Like, why wouldn't you be a hot mess? And I was like, oh, I thought I was strong, but it's like, it's okay to be that hot mess. But to throw that out there is to really have that courage that, so you guys have all had, and there's so many people that have had that courage to well, who's watching me on Facebook unravel? Who's watching me start this? Like, who am I? Even with that imposter syndrome, sitting who am I? And, people are going to judge you, and it's hard to put yourself out there. But to know positive because you had the courage to unravel, to not be okay, and let people see it. It gives other people permission. And I think that's so important. So that's my one thing. My last thing is to say, I think for the younger generation, if we can continue or make more of a focus to do so, but is to model what real connection looks like, and encourage that, because all of us, it's easier for me to text than get on the phone for 20 minutes with a friend, right? Or it's easy for me to like sit out and text and say, instead of knock on somebody's door, or to go out to lunch, and to watch people just don't think they need anybody anymore. And then we're lonely, and to let people know that I need you. I need to go to lunch with you. But for young people to see that we need people. I need to go borrow something from my neighbor, right? I don't just need to hit a button on a phone and have Amazon deliver it tomorrow, but just to really have those connections. But, we're responsible for modeling that. And I think that they, need to know how to connect more, not just sit on their phones and play with each other. They need to actually hang out and play with each other and interact. And so I think we can all do a better job at connecting.
Yeah. And thank you for saying the word be the example, Autumn, because I say this a lot to the parents. It's not so much the young adults that come forward to me, although they do. For some reason, they're very open with me. I don't know what that is, but they will tell me how they're feeling. But it's really the parents, you guys, that are coming to me right now, super concerned. And my first question is, well, how are you doing? What are you modeling for them? Are you following your own vision? Are you, growing personally? Because that's what they're looking at. So we have to be first and foremost leading that. So thank you, Autumn.
Could I tag on to that? Could I plus one that real quick?
Yeah.
So many people think then that means making it all look perfect, like I've got it all together, right? My kids are watching. I gotta show up to work every day. I've gotta, have that Christmas party. I've got to buy the gifts. I can't let them see me cry. I say BS. We have to be real. I did not lean on my son, like have him become my beacon, because I was fortunate to have a community. And I know Elizabeth would be our resident expert around that. And at the same time, I was not afraid of letting him see me when I was in a really difficult place, because I knew he was experiencing his own version of this, and then we could be there for each other. Yeah. So I think, Carey, when you say that, or we all share around being a model, again, it's the inner work. Do your inner work yourself, and then your kids will learn how to do that because you've given that gift to them. And it's messy. It isn't always appealing. It's certainly not perfect. However, and it's not fun. Did you say?
No.
And it ain't fun.
No, it's
and it ain't fun either. However, each one of us have shared like how enlightened we feel and how blessed and gifted we feel. Maybe I'm speaking for myself. I didn't hear this specifically, but we know we were called into these experiences.
Right.
And we have to show up in them.
Yeah. And I've been told from a lot of people that has been my path all along. So thank you for saying that. Yes, it's been, you can imagine the journey my daughter and I have been on, but we've been there for each other. We've had to be super vulnerable because it's the only way we can help each other. So we only have a couple more minutes, but Bella, do you want to say just one last thing?
What I'm hearing is that everything's circular, right? Nothing is independent of each other. And so we're hearing, model, right? We're hearing community. We're hearing do the work. As someone who is in the middle of doing inner child work, I do that so I can be a better parent to my daughter, right? So that she can grow up and do the things Karen's saying and have that connection, and that Autumn's saying, and that Elizabeth's saying. And before we even got into that, I was just going to say my one advice to the youth is, who is your board of CEOs? Who are the people at the top of your phone that, who are these people up here on your iPhone? Who are those VIPs? Because truly, who you surround yourself with in the effective ways that Autumn was just discussing is going to make all of the difference in your world, all of it. And so take inventory. Who is in your ears? Who is in your eyes? Who are you hanging out with? And if you can't, you can. You can't, like, what do you desire? I desire good morning texts, but don't have a romantic relationship right now for that. So you know what? My girlfriends and I do that now. I'm giving what I want to get. And anybody can do that. What do you want? Go out and give it. You will get it back. And get
So
good people
good.
in your life.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Well, thank you all. That just segues so beautifully without you all knowing it into me just making this quick announcement. And I've hinted to it several times already, but I am getting ready to launch a community for young adults. More details will come each week. Next week, I will make a bigger announcement around what this will look like for the community. But I will tell you now, it is going to open on 11/11. It's my son's birthday. And
And it's going to be absolutely amazing.
yeah, um, a lot of talk about vision, of course. I'll do a lot of vision work with them because most of them will tell you they're drifting. They don't have one, and drifting is not a great place to be. I will bring in to the community a lot of experts like you guys to talk to them on different topics. Topics around money, around relationships, around self-care, just all the things because they're just trying to figure it out. So I'm very, very excited about this community. To have a team of people. Yeah.
I think it's beautiful to see you going forward and doing this and living out your passion and your mission. And you're showing everybody that you're doing it scared, you're doing it full of emotion. But because of this emotion, this is something that's much bigger than you, therefore, it's
Right.
completely anointed.
Yeah.
And you've got all of us here to support you. And we cannot wait to cheer you on.
Oh, so grateful, you guys. So
And send
grateful.
a whole bunch of people to your community that we know,
Yes.
we know need
Well,
vision in that age group.
It's
And
yeah.
group of helping siblings heal,
Ugh.
and it's over 1,000 kids that are all over 18,
No.
who I think would be perfect for
Yeah.
either speaking. I mean, some of these kids are just so evolved and
Yeah.
so forward thinking. I kind of call them our indigo children, but I'm sure that they would love to be able to help out.
Mhm.
And I know that with your daughter, you know that when you've had a sibling transition, you grow up very quickly and you develop compassion and kindness and
Yes.
all these other skills that I think are really important.
Yeah. I
So
feel the floodgates, you guys, opening. So thank you for the support. I'm super excited about it. I'd love to keep coming back. I hope that you guys will come listen to us next week when I bring on another panel talking around hope and positivity. I have some very fun, some funny people coming on,
How you do?
and I'll bring more details. And I just want to leave a gift for anybody who's listening, watching. That I have a book called Vision is Victory, and it's actually a workbook. It's a book. It's a very simple book that you can walk through to write your vision on paper if you've never done it. And you can actually get that in a downloadable form if you just text the word victory, all in caps, to 26786. I'll say it again. Just text the word victory, all in capital letters, to 26786, and you can start working on that vision, and you'll actually be receiving notifications of what's coming up. So thank you, ladies. Cannot be more grateful for each and every one of you sharing your stories and supporting me. You're amazing.
thank
Thank
you
you.